The, and just as a follow-up, previous to that, when there was no increase given to Superintendent President Oakley, I believe, I don't want to go into what, prior to last June's 2%, before that there was no increase, even though the provision about potentially of up to a 4%, none was actually awarded at that time. So, and you had some other comments, I forgot, Spencer, about the start dates on that, but nonetheless, finally, if there are any other questions, I know we can move on. I will just say the last question had been, and it was a good question, why are you doing this? And I will tell you, many circumstances, some publicly are well known, but the fact is this gives the opportunity to this board, who in fairness has not really had an official vote on this CEO, this superintendent president. So for all the other issues involved, this is the first time that this sitting board has an opportunity to vote on a contract for President Oakley. Whether you think that's important or not, I personally do. It puts people on record. The last contract was approved by a previous board, and whether you say symbolically or just as a matter, I believe, of good governance, it essentially allows this board to take a stand publicly on the contract for the superintendent president. So with that, no other questions, Madam Secretary, I will ask you to call the roll on this item.
Okay, I hope that I have this correct. You've added the motion, or the recommendation by Trustee Otto to extend the contract for the Superintendent President Eloy Oakley to February 28, 2019, and still restructure the agreement that was dated 2013, right?
Right.
That's still the initial.
Right, and that was accepted by the maker of the motion, the second of the motion.
Okay.
That is the motion we are voting on. Madam Secretary, if you could please call the roll on this item.
Archuleta? Aye. Virginia Baxter?
Aye.
Jeff Kellogg?
Aye.
Doug Otto?
Aye.
And Sunny Zia?
No, and here's why. I think
Madam, I'm sorry. No,
I'd like to speak on my
Trustee
own
Zia,
vote.
no, and here's why. I'll explain it to you. In normal Robert Rules parliamentary procedure, you have the opportunity to discuss and state during the debate period. Once the vote has been finished, the discussion is over. The opportunity, as has been said previously on other items, is you have the opportunity to speak during the discussion period, not after you vote, and then you would get to say it, because then the colleagues do not have the opportunity also to debate the issue as well. So I'm not diverting from Robert's rules or traditional parliamentary procedures. There was a time for discussion. That discussion has ended. The vote has taken place. The motion passed on a 4-to-1 vote, and we'll move on. I'm sorry. Did I misstate?
No, sir, not at all. It was well summarized. May I be excused then?
Thank you for your
Thank you
time
very much.
also. All right, we're moving on to the next items. Thank you very much. And Superintendent President Oakley, congratulations.
Thank you.
And we look forward to more positive years working with you. We are at, I'm looking at my electronic one, and I'm looking at,
7.1.
there we go, 7.1, construction budgets and plans. We are going to, this is an informational item only. This is administrative services in response to the Board of Trustees' request and consultation with the board president. We prepared the attached report that lists each major construction project that started on or after January 2010. This report is broken into the following 4 major categories. They talk about projects, budget, as well as master plan, and as of December 31st, 2014, this area is in green and provides updated actual projected construction and start dates and move-in dates based upon the information we know at the time reports as prepared. This is one that Trustee Zia has been talking about, and we have finally got a report here. So, Superintendent President Oakley, do I need to add anything, or do you need to add anything to it?
No, certainly open to any questions of the board. We've tried to summarize all the different questions that various board members have had in discussing the bond projects, and also tried not to duplicate other reports that are given to the board along the way. So hopefully this provides the board the information that they're looking for, but we wanted to bring it here today to present it to the board and see what questions, if any, you had. This will be presented annually. What month, Anne Marie, remind me?
June.
June is part of the annual report on our construction program.
All right, very good. This is an informational item, so it does not need a motion or second, so we are open for discussion on this item.
I have a question.
Chair recognizes Trustee Zia.
First of all, thank you. I'm glad I'm getting this report after 5 months of requesting it. I know you guys were working on it and spending quite some time to make sure it's correct, so I appreciate that. I do, and this is for the first time I have to say, in the year that I've been elected, that I've seen this much detail, so I commend you for that. I just noticed a couple of things on this, and perhaps you can help me understand. One, the original start dates for all of these projects, and I believe it's 30, is missing. So I'd like to get clarification on one, why that is missing, and two, if they are in line with the actual original completion dates. You have the start dates, original anticipated completion dates for each contract. And if we are in line with those completion dates in this report, that's one question I have. And in reviewing this, it seems that most of the projects had delayed start dates, and out of the 12 completed projects, 10 were over budget. And I want to get a response or have an understanding of why that is. That's not necessarily a good grade. I mean, don't we have a management team that oversees this, right? The construction management team that oversees this, and why is that? I'm sure please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not attacking anybody personally or questioning anybody's competence, but this does not look very good that we're over budget in most of these projects. And also, it's hard to tell what if we completed these projects on time. Although I do have to say that it's increased. This is a great example of increased transparency. But if I can have those answers, and then also what the adjustment column represents, is that change orders? And if so, some of these have more than doubled. If you can please respond to that. Thank you.
I'll begin the answer, and then I'll turn it over to Vice President Gable. Certainly, all of our projects, as you know, Trustee Zia, are constantly reviewed by the Citizens Oversight Committee. Most of the changes that we'll discuss here are discussed with the Citizens Oversight Committee, and as well as the audits reflect the practices that are conducted on an annual basis. And so you receive that audit, and you have ample opportunity to raise those questions with the audit firm. Now, with regard to the changes, many of those are discussed when the projects are discussed before the board. Many of those changes are due to faculty or staff needing changes to a particular facility. Some of these facilities were designed 5, 6, 7 years ago. And so when the teams of faculty and staff meet with the final design team, changes are made to either accommodate new technology, to accommodate changes in what we want, changes in the way we want to design the classroom, changes in enrollments. Many of these projects were developed and published and approved by the board in the 2020 Facilities Master Plan. Many of those dates were originally put in there as to when we wanted to get started. And so the board has had ample opportunity to discuss these projects over the years. It's had ample opportunity to hear why many of these changes are being made. Now the board asked for this report, and that's why we're bringing it back to the board. So we're open to questions as we go forward about how we can improve the report, ways that we don't duplicate the efforts as we bring these individual projects to the board, when they come up for construction. And I realize that being a new member of the board, you haven't heard many of those reports over the years, and I understand that. And so we're hoping that we can make this a little bit easier for everyone to digest going forward. But again, in general terms, these projects are reviewed over and over again by various members of staff, Citizens Oversight Committee, the audit firm, and as well as the construction management team, who the board has opportunity to ask them questions every time we bring their contract forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Anne Marie to talk specifically about the start dates, and we have various start dates that we publish over time, and I'll let her comment on that, as well as the questions on the adjustments.
Thank you, President Oakley. What we presented here was the projected construction start date, and that came directly out of our 2020 Unified Master Plan that the board approved back in August of 2007. Those are the dates that you see there. I'll call it purple. I don't know that it looks purple, but it's the one in between the orange and the green columns. And when that Unified Master Plan was done, there wasn't a developed construction completion date for each of the projects. That was just the anticipated time frame of when the project would start. As the program has worn on, we've worked with the Facilities Advisory Committee to reprioritize projects, to shuffle projects around based upon the needs of the campuses, at both campuses, based upon the needs of the instructional programs, to shift when those construction start dates are going to occur. And that's what you see in the green columns. And so you see that there are two columns there, because these are the projects that we had an actual or it is a current projected start date. And when we plan for those projects, when we plan to be able to utilize or move into those buildings for when it's open for use. As far as the adjustments are concerned, I don't think it's a fair representation to say that just because we added money to the budget, we went over budget. That is not the case at all. When these budgets were developed, they were developed back in 2007. They were estimates. The estimates were done based upon an assignable square footage of a building that varies greatly from gross square footage. The difference being a gross square footage includes the square foot of a hallway, of a bathroom, of a utility closet, anything that you don't have a person living in at all times. And so when we discovered that the original budgets that appeared in the Unified Master Plan were based upon assignable square footage and not gross square footage, we went through a complete estimation of all the remaining projects to try to bring those budgets up to what we considered at the time a more reasonable budget. I would say the other thing, back in 2007 when the master plan was developed, we didn't have the vision that we were going to be putting technology into every single classroom. So what we call a smart classroom, that wasn't envisioned, and those costs weren't incorporated into the original budget. We've done that now. It is a significant cost. And so what we do with every construction project is we have the current budget that you see there now. And when we get done with working with the user groups and planning the project, the architects will give us an estimate based upon all of the needs and desires that have been built into the project on what they think the project is going to cost. At that point in time, we determine whether or not the budget exists. If it doesn't, then what we do is we will make another adjustment at that point in time before we go out to bid, after we've gotten approval from the Facilities Advisory Committee to move the budget to that current project. So I think, every budget adjustment that has been done to the bond program has come to the board. The board has approved it through the budget transfers. The Facilities Advisory Committee is fully aware of the adjustments that are made. the reprioritizations that are made, and that it also feeds up to the College Planning Committee. So what the Facilities Advisory Committee does, that goes to the College Planning Committee. So hopefully that answers your question.
What about the original anticipated completion dates? Why are they omitted from this report? And are we in line with the actual completion dates and what we originally set out?
As I said, we didn't have original completion dates when the master plan was developed.
No, my question is, don't we have contracts for each and every one of these buildings? And isn't in the contract a X amount of days after notice to proceed for the contractor? Isn't that how we monitor our contract durations for construction, or am I missing something? Do we know, is it an indefinite contract? Does it not have a completion date that we are aware of?
Can I just, and I'll let Vice President Gable answer, but there's certain contracts, for example, the parking structure was a design build concept, a very clear number of how much it was going to be built for, but that burden was entirely on the contractor. If they exceeded that amount, they were going to lose money. So those type of contracts, it's very clear what the amount would be, but these other ones, I don't believe you're going to find that it's as clear as that scenario, for example. And design build is relatively new within the community college system, so just
Okay.
for your
And how many of these 30 contracts were design build?
The parking structure was design build, building GG is design build, and the math tech culinary arts building is a design build.
So 3 out of 30. So 27, we should have a completion, a contract term for each of these contracts. Is that not correct? And I don't understand why it can't. It's not computing. There's got to be a term for these contracts. Do we not have a term for these construction contracts?
We do have a term for the contracts that are under construction. There are a number of days that are listed in the contractor's contract of how many days they will have until they finish the contract. However, that is not the representation that we have put into our presentations, because that the substantial completion or even the construction completion date is not the move-in date. So what we try to focus on with everything that we do with the campus community is, when are you going to move into the building? When do we get to use the building for what it was intended for? That will not appear in any contractor's contract, because once they turn the building over to us, then we enter into another contract with the technology vendor that is installing all of the media equipment that goes into the classrooms. We also have a commissioning agent that's working on the HVAC, programs, and then we have the move. So you're not going to be able to look at a contractor's contract to determine when we're going to be able to use the building. What we've done in the green column, we have put in there for every project that we have on the forefront or the horizon is when we anticipate to be able to move into those buildings.
Well, I certainly see that, but how can I tell from this report that we're on time as the original target that we set out? How many of these projects are on time as far as their actual projected move-in date or completion?
I would say the majority of the projects are on time. The projects that were not on time, which we are all very much aware of, Building A was not on time. Building A was not on time because we had to fire the contractor. So we fired the contractor. We had to enter into an agreement with the surety or the bonding company, who then had to hire another contractor to come in. So that delayed the project about 6 to 8 months before we finalized that contract. We have the Central Quad landscaping
the
project.
palm trees.
Well, so there's the front quad issue with the palm trees. That one was behind the time. The Central Quad building, or the Central Quad area, is behind schedule right now. Building CC, the fitness center, was behind schedule. And each of those buildings, when we're doing the construction update for the board, we're informing the board at that point in time on those projects. This is behind schedule, this is why. You know, we do the same thing at the Facilities Advisory Committee, we do the same thing with the Citizens Oversight Committee.
Okay, well, perhaps you can provide detail on which ones are in totality, because I love the summary. As we piece approve each time, which ones. It's hard to keep track of all of them, and this is a great tracking mechanism, and I like to see how many are on time. And let me just make sure I understand. Am I understanding this correctly as far as the adjustments, that it's really because of faculty and staff wanting instructional material or facilities? Is that what it is? I mean, are we hinging all of this on the faculty and staff's needs and designer's error? Or it just seems like a little bit of a...
Trustee Zia.
Excuse me, I'm not finished yet.
I didn't
It
hear
seems
that.
a little bit broad. So if I can get clarity on whether or not that's the case, or it spans to other changes, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Can I just, someone clarify, I mean, go ahead, we're not blaming faculty or staff.
Yes. No, absolutely not. And I think that was an unfair characterization of what we tried to say. And certainly, we're not blaming it on designer error, although there have been projects that we have gone after the architect for designer error. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is every building houses faculty and staff and classrooms and instructional programs. That's what we do. So as those needs change over time, and sometimes they change well after the building was originally designed and an estimated budget done for, we work with those user groups to try and understand. A great example is the Culinary Arts Building. That project has changed scope significantly since the first time we designed that building. So yes, we absolutely do everything we can to satisfy the needs of the faculty, the programs, the staff. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't get it right, and we have to come back and adjust. Another good example is Building A. The design of the registration and admissions office, when it was originally envisioned, changed significantly from the time that it was actually built, and we've had to go back and adjust that design over time. So yes, those things certainly happen. We're not blaming anyone for that. We continue to do everything we can to adjust to the needs of the faculty and staff. Certainly there are times when there are adjustments that need to be made, and I'll let Vice President Gable address those, that are either due to unforeseen circumstances, like when we dig holes and we find things that are not on plans, we have to adjust to it. But I'll let Vice President Gable comment on those adjustments that are not due to the change in design.
Thank you, President Oakley. And, you know, those can be numerous. I think I started off by saying how the original budget was developed, which was on assignable square footage. So right off the bat, we started off with, I would say, unreasonably low budgets for every single project that was listed, because it did not account for the total cost of building the building. They also did not include the technology costs of going into the buildings. So, you know, you think back 8 years, well, 8 years ago, we didn't have smart classrooms. 8 years ago, we didn't have Wi-Fi hotspots, to where anywhere you walk on any one of these campuses, you can use your mobile device through Wi-Fi. You know, there's a significant cost associated with those types of things. The DSA standards for both seismic and ADA guidelines have changed substantially in the last 8 years. The seismic guidelines especially have increased the requirements that we have to adhere to when we're building a building to ensure that we're meeting the Title 24 guidelines. That's, you know, looking at the nursing technology building C there, you know, we added $5,887,000 to that project, which is primarily all because of the seismic upgrades that were required by the Division of State Architects in order for us to meet Title 24 guidelines. Since that's a new building, those guidelines weren't known back in 2006, 2007 when these were being developed. So those are a couple of the huge changes that we are required to adhere to. The stormwater runoff. That's another huge requirement that we're required to adhere to and make sure that our buildings are satisfying that regulatory requirement of capturing our water that's running off of the buildings and it's not going directly into the streets. So there are various reasons of why the budgets have been adjusted, and the budgets will continue to be adjusted. The MDAB project, we got some state funding for that. That project was originally designed in 2003. Well, you know how many users have changed over that were part of the planning process that are no longer there? We did make some last minute changes on that project just in the AA area for the cybersecurity program. That program didn't exist back then. We created that program, and so we had to change the space in order to accommodate a new program, instructional program that we're offering, and so there's a cost that comes along with that.
Okay, I really appreciate you clarifying, Ms. Gable, because it was hard to tell, and I appreciate you speaking to that. According to the explanation, it sounds like we can never go over budget because budget keeps getting adjusted. That's what I'm having a hard time. Like, for example, building GG, that was the design build that Mr. Kellogg was alluding to earlier, that we just approved a change order of approximately $800,000 tonight on consent agenda. Went from $8 million to $15 million adjustment, and for a total of 23. Is it something? How can we better manage our budget so that we are closer to the original set budget? If we keep adjusting it, then there's no way we could tell if we're really within the original budget, because it keeps getting adjusted, change orders keeps getting granted, and it's a moving target unless I'm misunderstanding this.
Trustee Zia, can I ask you to yield the floor to your colleague, Trustee Baxter, because she's been patiently waiting to ask
Sorry, I
questions.
didn't realize that. You had a question, Judy? Sorry.
Yeah, Ms.
Trustee
Gable,
Baxter.
my question is, what is the total of all these figures, and how close are we to reaching the limit of the bond money?
I don't have the total off the top of my head. We have because this represents the projects with a start date on or after January 2010.
And that's why Building T is not on this list.
Correct. That's why Building T is not on here. So we do have a report that we share with the Citizens Oversight Committee, and we've started sharing it with the Facilities Advisory Committee that gives the grand total. I could probably pull it up real quick. It's on the website to give you that answer. But, we have about $150 million left of cash to issue.
Okay.
Now, will we get everything done on our list with that remaining funds? No, I don't think so. And we have already zeroed out some projects. So, you can see there. One of the big one is the primary gymnasium. Originally, we thought we were going to spend $25 million. We backed out $24.7 million to where there's $505,000 left in that budget. What we left in there is to replace roofs and try to do some restroom upgrades. But we are not going to get to renovating the primary gymnasium like we had originally anticipated. And again, when we base it upon the prioritization list that the Facilities Advisory Committee recommends and approves of which projects we take the funding from for the specific buildings on that.
And the auditorium, I see that there's an increase there. Is that going to include an elevator from the, am I asking something too specific, and I don't mean to?
No, that's fine. That number does include an elevator. However, it does not include air conditioning.
Okay, that was my second question.
And so, that's a discussion that we're having right now because we are in the planning phase for the Building J auditorium. what the architects have told us, due to the changes in the seismic requirements, if we want to put air conditioning in there, we're going to have to do significant seismic upgrades to the roofing. That's going to be a discussion I think we're going to have at the college, is do we want to move forward with that? If we do, you know, the last building right now that's on the project list is Building B, as in boy. Right. So do we want to reduce that scope even more to try to fund the auditorium? Personally, I think if we're going to put the money into the auditorium, we need to air condition and heat the auditorium. So I would, more than likely, depending upon the cost, recommend that we do add budget to that project in order to do an appropriate and sufficient job on the renovation of the auditorium.
So this is a good example of how things change over time that we can't possibly know about 5 or 10 years before.